From the Lean Enterprise Institute in Boston, this is the WLEI Podcast, where we share stories of people making the world better through lean thinking and practice. For more information about LEI, including how we can help you apply lean thinking, please visit lean.org.
Hello, I'm Lex Schroeder, and my guest today on the WLEI podcast is Julia Austin. Julia is an executive fellow at Harvard Business School and executive coach with deep experience as a product leader in tech at companies like Akamai Technologies, VMware Inc., and DigitalOcean. She's the author of the book After the Idea: What It Really Takes to Create and Scale a Startup. I'm excited to speak with Julia today about one of the lean product and process development principles we talk about here at the Lean Enterprise Institute, thanks to Jim Morgan's work. Put people first, and what it really means to take good care of people and build strong teams. Well, hi, Julia. I'm delighted to have the chance to talk with you about the importance of people in product development and what it means, as we say at the Lean Enterprise Institute, to put people first, one of these lean product and process development principles. To start, though, I'd love to give you a chance to share about yourself and what you're working on and thinking about these days.
Sure. Thanks for having me, Lex. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you today. So a little background on me. I am 3+, it's really weird to say that out loud, 3+ decades in tech and startups and building products. So lots of experience there. In addition to that, I've been teaching at Harvard Business School for the last 10 years, mostly focused on building products and starting startups and helping our students engage with that in a hands-on way. I'm also an author of a book that recently came out called After the Idea. And in addition to that, I'm an executive coach. I work exclusively with startup founders. I sit on boards. I'm an angel investor. And I also have a nonprofit for founders that identify as women. And it's a very small community of women who just support each other through their journeys.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I'm very excited too. Lots of good overlaps to talk about. All right, so let's get right into it and talk about people and teams. I'm thrilled to have a podcast with you on this topic as we start to move towards the end of the year. LEI Senior Advisor for Lean Product and Process Development, Jim Morgan, reminds us all the time that in product development, to truly put people first, it's all about aligning people around clear purpose, encouraging collaboration across departments, not so easy to do, and developing leaders who coach, not command. I'm curious, just looking at one of these, let's just look at encouraging collaboration across departments. Everybody talks about that, right? What does this require in your view? What conditions need to be in place for real collaboration across teams to happen in service of an excellent product or service? Because it's more than just like keeping a product focus, right?
Totally. So yeah, this is so important. And I see this not just with the startups that I work with, but I've been at big companies as well. And I think you underestimate how important this it can be as a leader. So the first thing is being really clear on the what and why, and not just articulating the vision. From my perspective, it's remembering that what's in your brain or how you're thinking about the vision might not always land the same for all the stakeholders involved, right? And people process information differently. So you presenting, here's a vision of the business at an all-company meeting or sending out an email might land differently than a video recording or a detailed write-up or a specification. So being mindful that the language and how you're articulating it needs to be tweaked or adjusted depending on your audience. And different teams will have different ways of thinking about it, right? How the sales team hears a vision and the what and the why could be very different than how the product team hears that. So it's articulating the vision and adjusting it for the audience and making sure it's in a medium that will land for each individual inside your business. So I think that's the first thing that's really important to foster good collaboration. The next is alignment on interdependencies. So there's alignment of, yes, we're all going there. We all know that's where we're going and what we're building. But do I understand how my role affects another team member's role or what they're working on if it doesn't get done or does get done before I get done, how that impacts our overall targets, our deadlines, whatever it is. So I think we tend to forget that I'm doing my thing, got it. This is the thing I'm supposed to go do to make that happen. But how does that then impact others? So when we do that, we really understand each other and how everybody's coming to the table. I think we perform generally better when we set those expectations that are clear about the interdependencies. The last part is psychological safety, right? And not just do we feel safe at work, but are we creating safe spaces for healthy discourse? Are we opening up opportunities for different points of view, right? One of my favorite things when I was at VMware, which was one of the 3 early stage businesses I was at, we used to invite the the biggest naysayer that we could find when we're doing a conversation about a new product or something really innovative. Let's bring somebody in who will be totally against this, right? Because we want them to poke holes at it. We want to be sure we're thinking about things that we might have not, because we're so biased. We're so in love with our idea that this is what we want to do. Or it makes sense to us, but let's get sales or support or others in where they might have a different perspective of like, that sounds great, but now we're going to have to support that, or how are we going to sell that? So bringing all of that together and making sure it's okay and perfectly reasonable for someone to say, no, I disagree, or I can't imagine how that's going to work in real life, and feel good about that, I think is really, really important. So it's not just setting the vision, but also lining up all those other things to make sure you can execute well.
Well said. Absolutely. It's funny whenever I read Amy Edmondson's work and so many other good people like yourself doing important work on psychological safety, I think of all the overlaps with lean thinking and practice and lean product
100%. Yeah,
development.
I love Amy to death. And yes, if you don't have that culture of safety inside your organization, it's really hard to do. So,
Absolutely. So whether it's economic challenges, the rise of AI, or so many other changes that we're seeing to the larger business context right now and that leaders are dealing with, I'm curious, can you speak to where you see leaders and teams struggling in product development? What are like particular problems or questions that you're observing in your coaching practice?
yeah, I'm seeing it all over the place. I was just at a conference a couple weeks ago with 400 product leaders, the CTO conference, so female product leaders. And the resounding echo from everybody was, we're all being asked to embrace AI, just go do AI, right? And without clarity of like, okay, but what are we trying to achieve here? And is this just so we can say to our stakeholders, to our customers, to our investors, we're covered, we're doing AI? Is this to remain competitive and make sure we're differentiating ourselves as a business using AI? Is this to be more efficient, right? Everybody's hearing we can do more with less if we're using AI. What are we being tasked to actually do? So what I'm hearing them struggle with, and as founders, the same thing, they're saying, we know we need to be doing more with AI, but like, what does that actually mean, right? And something I've been thinking a lot about is the parallels to this. And when I was in the early years of the internet back in 1999, hearing we have to do internet things, or we have to do the website, or we have to have streaming, or we have to have these things, but to what end, right? What was the leverage point there? And if we were doing it, this false sense of, you're doing AI, it should make us leaner, but maybe not, or maybe there's going to be a big investment in the beginning, which is not going to feel very lean, but then over time we'll really be able to leverage that down the road. So that's the struggle right now. Is we get it, we have to adopt it. The expectation is we're hiring people who understand it, or can leverage it in some way. Our customers expect us to have an AI story. Uh, but translate that into something really practical is what's been really hard.
Yeah, and connect, and like you said, connecting it to a larger business strategy, right? I mean, we talk about
Yeah.
that all the time, sort of like connecting it squarely to purpose, and that takes human beings, which brings us back
Right.
to our topic for today. I'm curious, are there any stories you can share of when you've seen teams really come together to build something fantastic, in part through working much more collaboratively across teams, as we talk about?
Yeah, one of my favorite stories is when I was at DigitalOcean. I was a CTO at DigitalOcean, and as part of my job there, I used to do regular listening tours and go around and talk to customers, but also non-customers. I like to talk to friends who were using, we were a cloud company, so using other clouds, heads of engineering, product leaders that I had known for years. Tell me what you're using. What do you like about it? What do you not like about it? Or if you're using our product, what do you like about it? What do you not like about it? So that I could get a sense of where are we missing the mark, or where are we excelling, right? So I could bring that back to my team for thought. So in that one of those tours, something that kept coming up was billing, and that billing was really hard for not just our product, for customers who are using our product, to parse who's using what, why did we pay for that, what features are we using, those types of things. But the other cloud companies too were terrible. Everybody was saying it over and over again, it's terrible. And our differentiator in the market at the time was simplicity, about what we delivered as a product,
Hmm.
except for the bill, was simple. And that was really what made us stand out, is we were easy to adopt, easy to use. So I came back to my team and I said, and I at the time ran product and engineering, marketing and design. And I said, we have a challenge. Where's the simplicity solution out there? But we missed it on the bill. And so let's pull together a cross-functional team to really think about this, and it should not just be product and engineering thinking about this. I could have easily said, hey, billing PM and hey, engineering, go figure this out. But I pulled together our support, somebody from our support team, somebody from our finance team, because they're the ones sending the invoices to our customers, somebody from sales, somebody from marketing, et cetera. Pulled together all the key members of our business and said, if we are selling something that we are claiming is simple, it should be simple from the website, first blush of who we
Yeah.
are, straight to the bill. And everything should just seem, simple all the way through. From the minute I met them to the minute I got my first bill, it all came through. And by bringing all the different stakeholders in, and this isn't to toot my horn, but was much more about, we have to understand what kind of complaints is support getting when customers are saying, I don't understand my bill, or why did I get charged for this, right? What complaints are sales getting when they're trying to close a big deal and people are saying, I don't understand how your pricing works, those types of things. And what's finance hearing when they're getting pushback or people aren't paying for things the way they should be paying for things. So by bringing the whole team together, everybody understood how something as basic as the bill really impacted the whole business. And how do we create a solution where everyone feels like we represent ourselves well to our customers? That was fantastic. And the result was something that was just so straightforward that a lot of our customers were like, the other cloud companies should really offer something like this. It's so much easier to understand. Like, yeah. So yeah, that's something I'm really proud of, but also the team they really felt like they had such a mutual respect and understanding of how they all fit into the puzzle.
Yeah, no, it's really hard work, but what a payoff. Thank
Yeah.
you for breaking that down for us. Julia, you have deep expertise in tech and across a range of industries. I know you think and write about leadership a lot. I'm curious how you're advising individual leaders right now in terms of, again, making sure to put people first in this age of emerging technologies and
Yeah.
how to lead teams well. What do you think lean product and process development thinking as well offers in this regard of truly putting people first?
Yeah, I think that the methodology ties so nicely to my general point of view about how we lead people and how we lead teams. First and foremost is going back to what I said before about the what and the why and setting context, right? That creating safety also includes understanding what we're doing and why we're doing it. And if I have context, I'm more likely to perform well as an individual contributor or as a leader. So I think that's the first thing. And then the next is expectation transparency, which is another also big part of the methodology. So how we work, what does great look like? Making sure we understand, what satisfaction at the end, whether that's a quality metric, whether that's an NPS score, whatever that might be, help everybody understand as humans, we did well if it looks like this at the end, because then you know what you're striving for. And that brings down any kind of uncertainty or fear that you might have as you're building something. Uh, there's front loading what those expectations are as a performing team, right? The more we spend in really understanding the problem, the key stakeholders, how we all fit together, investing that time up front. I'm a big believer in moving slow to move fast. And so I talk a lot about that in my book as well. So let's just break everything down. And even though it may seem slow and arduous to spend time really understanding the user stories and really understanding the problems that we're trying to address, the more we all understand it from all our perspectives, and again, poke holes and tweak it as we need to, the easier it is it's going to be to build. And today, especially if you're building software, building's easy, right? That's unless you're doing rocket science, which you might be, but if you're not, most of the build part is not nearly as hard as it used to be when I was in the early days of my career. Getting everybody synchronized and clear about what we're building, what the problem is, and prioritizing is what's hard.
Mm.
So spending that time up front is really important.
I like that you talked about, getting clear on the problems to solve, slowing down in order to go faster. Are there other things kind of day to day that you advise leaders to do? Like what does it look like to put people first day to day?
Sure. So two things. One is developing your leaders as much as you're developing the individual contributors, I think is really important. So are your leaders set up for success? Do they know what it means? I was actually just having this conversation with one of my CTO co-founders yesterday, who was hiring their first head of engineering. And he was concerned because he was testing all the technical skills, because this person was probably going to be a player coach in the early days, but hadn't really thought about how to test them as a leader. And so we had a great conversation about, well, what would it look like if they were a great leader? And how would their employees feel about work, right? Did they love coming to work every day? Did they have friends at work, right? Were they telling friends, you should come work here? It's so much fun. We're doing really interesting things, right? And how are you creating a culture that has set up your team to thrive, right? I've been in those cultures, and when you feel like it's not just about the work or the thing I'm building, but I really love who I work with and am excited about what we're doing. I think that's how you really create that environment for success. And that can be the softer things that sometimes, especially in product and engineering, not everybody is excited about. But it's things like I have, a founder who when they at the end of every sprint, if they ship what they intended to, they go out for ice cream, right? It's a half an hour of their lives at work. It's not a big team offsite. I think those are important too, but let's go celebrate and let's have some ice cream. And it's a fun way to like know what people's crazy flavor, preferences are or whatever. But how do we get to know each other as human beings? I think is also a big part of that, right? Um, I always found it fun when I found out I had an employee working for me, a product manager, an engineer who had a weird niche interest in something, right? I had one who he loved collecting rare types of cereal. It sounds so crazy, but right, he had like a bunch of boxes of cereals on
Yeah,
his.
there are weird cereals out
There
there.
are weird
Yeah.
cereals. And so if I was traveling, I traveled a lot for work, and I was in a different country or different location where I would see something, I would grab one for him just because it was fun. And I would leave it on his desk, usually when he wasn't there. And then he'd always, text me or whatever. Did you see that weird? Like, and he was just a guy on my team performing really well, but I also wanted to make sure he felt seen and appreciated as a human being, not just as a worker on my team.
I love that. Before I, ask for any final thoughts you may want to share, I have one last question, kind of, specifically speaking about lean management systems. uh, put people first sounds really simple, but it's actually rooted in this like deep principle of respect for the worker, right? In lean thinking and practice, respect for the worker at every level, their time and their energy and their intelligence. I think that's what got me, persuaded that lean thinking and practice was a really excellent way of doing business. But I also think it's worth being said that there's more expectations of people in a way in a lean
Yeah,
organization or a lean startup. In other words, like, you know, in the lean product and process development world, we talk about growing teams of responsible experts, people who create, apply, and share knowledge across teams, but who truly, take responsibility for doing that and solving hard problems to create more value. And it's like this very rigorous way of showing up at work and doing
right.
PDCA, as we say, and continuous improvement. And it is higher expectations in a way, and yet you have more respect in that culture as well in a lean organization.
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this responsibility piece. Given that we're in really challenging times, how do we build responsibility and commitment in people, especially now?
Yeah, yeah, it's really tricky right now. Also, I think there's a different mindset with some of the younger workforce members in terms of how they feel about work and how responsible they want to be. When I'm talking to my coaching clients, especially as they're thinking about accountability and responsibility, how do I hold people accountable? How do I make them feel responsible? My encouragement is to flip it to ask them how they're going to hold themselves accountable, right? Instead of I am watching you and I expect you to do XYZ, which you are as a leader, you definitely do that. But instead, how are you going to hold yourself accountable? How are you going to check in with yourself, your team, others to make sure you're delivering what you're committing to deliver? And checking in with me if you're falling short or need support or whatever it is. That tends to turn it back on them to say, I own this. So that gives them agency. I'm the one giving myself agency to move forward. And I will let you know how I'm going to achieve that. Not only I believe we generally as a company will perform better, but they're going to love what they're doing because they really are going to feel that ownership.
Yeah, which brings it right back to respect. Um, I love that answer. I mean, agency is the word, and when people are intrinsically motivated, right? We know the the brain science on this, the organizational change research on this. People, when they're intrinsically motivated, show up with so much more enthusiasm and commitment and clarity about the work to be done. Any final thoughts you'd add on kind of this theme of putting people first and how leaders can do this in practice in these times?
Yes. So putting people first above AI is something I've been thinking about a lot, right? So, yes, AI is important. Yes, we will be using it in all sorts of ways that might mean some roles inside of companies will become obsolete. It's a superpower in a lot of ways, but it's not going to eliminate human beings in the cycle. And humans are complicated. And the things we can assume, even, ChatGPT can get things wrong, right? Human beings can get things wrong as well. But we can lose sight of, if we're overly dependent on AI for lots of things, that the humans still are doing the work and working with each other. And unless you're like a solo business owner with no employees, you're still going to have to deal with all of that. So remembering all these principles and saying, I've got to set up, even if you're a 2-person company or 3-person company and growing, thinking about culture from day one, thinking about accountability and responsibility from day one, thinking about slowing down to move fast, and then consider, okay, how will AI play a role in that versus the opposite, which I worry about, frankly, of the let's start with AI and then we'll figure out people later. I think that's dangerous. So use it. I'm not saying avoid it, but be smart about it. It's not going to dominate what you do. The humans and how you treat them and how they work together is going to be what makes you win.
Well, I love ending on that note, and thank you for all of your humanity on this podcast. And I really look forward to finishing your book. I've started it, but I'm going to finish it. And thank you for being our guest today.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. It was fun.